The Brad rules!
Talk about classic arcade games. Konami's X-Men, released in 1992, is a monumental arcade game, especially when it comes to superhero games. This is a high-quality beat-em-up with such a rich legacy and popularity. With many iterations of the cabinet sporting 6-player capability, when most beat-em-ups featured only 4 players. Konami already had honed their craft the previous year in 1991, making super successful beat-em-ups featuring powerhouse licenses such as the Ninja Turtles, in Turtles in Time, and The Simpsons. Yeah, you can see these guys were on a roll, having already developed 3 of the greatest arcade games of all time. And now it was time to take on the X-Men in the very same genre. And needless to say, it was another massive success, becoming one of the most popular arcade games of all time. There really isn't an overarching plot at the start of the game other than stopping Magneto and other villains from running amok and conquering the world. Along the way, Professor X and Kitty get kidnapped, but there isn't really an interesting original plot to tie things together, which is probably the only big criticism I can offer up. They could have come up with something a little less generic. Also, how did Magneto get control over the Sentinels? Are these his own custom Sentinels, explaining their far smaller stature? It's not explained, and I think they could have easily done that in the narrated intro, which just basically tells us the plot, and I absolutely love this intro. So you can choose from Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, and the oddball out of the bunch, Dazzler. And I remember when I would talk about this game with friends, we questioned if she was a real X-Men or not. And we were confused as to why it was not Jubilee. She would have been the perfect fit. Also, Gambit would have been awesome as well, but playing this again, I really enjoy playing as Dazzler and using her mutant power. And each X-Men has their own mutant power, with some being comic book accurate, like Storm emitting a tornado and Cyclops firing off an optic blast, but others like Wolverine and Colossus are completely original to the game just to give them a little added flair. Each sprite of the X-Men looks so detailed, bold, solid, and huge. These are some good-looking sprites. They all stand out, and their designs are based on how they appear in the Pride of the X-Men pilot from 1989, which was a failed attempt to launch an X-Men cartoon series prior to the massive hit that was the 1993 animated series. You'll plow your way through waves of enemies, with many of them being human-sized Sentinels, which are original variants of their massive counterparts seen in the comics and cartoons. And there's even another variant on top of the normal ones that looks like Samus. There's also Reavers and the addition of new enemies in Lizardmen and these weird creatures that sprout out of the ground. The boss lineup is certainly an interesting one, consisting of huge villains such as Pyro, the Blob, Juggernaut, and the big bad Magneto, and deeper cuts in Nimrod, Living Monolith, and Wendigo. I could safely say I had no idea who any of these guys were. I always thought Living Monolith was just a filler boss of a random statue coming to life. I didn't know he was actually a villain from the comics dating back to 1969, but he's certainly the deepest cut here. Most of these villains appeared in the Pride of the X-Men pilot, which explains most of these selections, but interestingly, a well-known villain like Toad, who was in the pilot, was left out. Considering this game was released in 1992, it's interesting that they went ahead tying this game to that show, which only had a single pilot episode and aired 3 years ago. I doubt many people are even aware of the connection. They all look great, and their sprites are very detailed, just like the X-Men themselves. It's just a shame that top-notch baddies such as Sabretooth, Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister, and Mojo didn't find their way in. But how can I be mad when we have old Wendigo constantly repeating his name?
Wendigo! Wendigo! Wendigo!
now! Serenity now!
I absolutely love the dialogue, especially Magneto's, and I'd like to take a moment to appreciate some of these classic lines.
X-Men, welcome to die! Kill you! You are dead! X-Chicken! X-Men, come to die!
I also appreciate the twists and turns, like coming to the cliff in the jungles of Island M and Magneto blasting you off of it, and Mystique fooling you twice, once posing as Professor X and dumping you into a pit, and then again masquerading as Magneto in a boss fight. I also really like how Pyro just burns through the wall at the end of the first level, making for a grand entrance. There are actually some interesting callbacks to the pilot episode that you might miss, such as these killer flowers that were seen attacking Dazzler in the Danger Room and fighting the villains one after another in the hallway on Asteroid M as you fight your way toward Magneto is reminiscent of the closing moments of the episode. The OST is downright phenomenal. This is some funky ass stuff. And right from the first stage, you get a catchy and heroic sounding track. Here, have a listen to it and a few others from this classic OST.
X-Men. X-Men. Get it! Come on.
Now that is what I call a memorable soundtrack. It gets you in the mood for some superhero head-smashing action. This is a tremendous game and one of the finest beat-em-ups to ever be released. It's beautiful to look at with fantastic detailed sprites, great music, and simple and fun gameplay. X-Men is one of those games that will never lose its legacy and will forever be remembered as one of the greats. Konami knocked it out of the park with this one, and they weren't done, as later that year they'd go on to make yet another great arcade game in Bucky O'Hare, which I looked at in a video previously, and you can check that out here. Konami had cemented themselves as the king of beat-em-ups, and X-Men sits on a throne of greatness that is hard to rival. So that just about does it for this video, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you love the X-Men arcade game as much as I do? And let's discuss it down below. And guys, please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bells to get all notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my subscribers for your continued support. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.